Today is February 16th, 2005. We are in the home of Lena Cole on Higgins Lake on the East Shore. And my name is Carol Darlow. And Lena, if you would please make a statement that this tape will belong to the Roscommon Area Historical Society.
Yes, it will.
Okay, thank you.
Especially if it goes to Hollywood.
Oh, right. We might. Um, well, let's start by you telling us about your first coming up here, or your parents, whoever came first.
My parents, my dad primarily and the family came up here to stay at my uncle's place on the ranch.
Okay, your father's name,
Was Rainey,
last name,
Paul,
Paul, Paul.
Paul. And we were up here and he just moseyed around and he found this property. And he loved it. And of course, family, there was opposition. You don't want to be up there in that place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that type
About
thing.
what years was
I
that?
think we were here 27, 28,
Oh, okay.
you know. And I can remember now this porch we're sitting on here, this was all screened. He added this. It was just a kitchen, living room, and 3 bedrooms upstairs.
So when he bought the property, there was already a cabin here, or a cottage?
The basic house was here.
Oh, okay.
And he added around the perimeter. And this was all screened in here
Oh.
and down the side. Well, my husband and I put thermal pane and etc. But off of the kitchen, there was a little porch where if you went out there around 9 o'clock at night, you could hear the whippoorwill.
Oh.
That's before there was so many intrusions of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that. But I think I was 3 or 4 then, so, you don't remember as much. Like I said, my sister was older, and she would have been, remembering more. So.
Uh-huh. So your mother and father came up here just in the summer then?
Yes, this was a summer home, summer cottage.
Did they come and stay all summer?
Oh, yes, we were here all summer. Yeah.
All summer. And what did your father do for a living?
He was in the building business.
In Detroit, or?
In Detroit, and my grandmother, she ran a grocery and butcher shop, but my grandfather was a builder also.
What was your grandmother's name? Your father's
My, that would be my father's mother. Her name was Lena Kurtzman.
Oh, so you were named after her.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your grandfather's name?
Riney.
Another Riney.
Another Riney, yeah.
No kidding, so there were 3
Hey, come on now. Come on, kid.
Chloe is also here.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, did your grandparents come up here
No,
also?
no, they were gone by that time.
Oh, they were
yeah,
gone by
yeah.
then. Okay.
My grandmother on my mother's side lived with us. That was Jessie Wright Bennett.
That was your mother?
That was my mother's mother.
Okay, what was your mother's name then?
Jessie?
Right, then I thought
Jessie.
that was
Oh. Well, that was her maiden name. See, Jessie
Oh.
married my dad, Riney, but her mother's name
her.
was
Also Jessie.
Jessie Wright Bennett.
Okay.
Today, there doesn't seem to be the trend to keep family names
No.
active.
So who was the aunt and uncle, or the uncle that had
The range?
the ranch? Can you tell
That
us
was
a little
Aunt
bit about
Ella. That was on and Albert Lincoln. And see, I'm not sure about that exactly as to ownership, but I know they had a big part of it. That would have been on my mother's side.
And so what years was that?
Well,
Is he the one that ran it as a cattle ranch?
no.
No.
When I remember as a kid, we would go out there, and of course it was lovely, and the buildings were magnificent, the cattle buildings and that. So I think that was prior to his owning it.
Okay. So he didn't own it when it was not a cattle ranch? when he
No,
owned it.
no. There were several little farms.
What kind of buildings do you mean?
Well, where the cattle would be kept,
So a
you
regular
know, and it
barn.
was, oh yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, for that period, you know, and there was a caretaker, and they had a lovely big white house, and I can remember it, they had all golden oak woodwork in it. It was just
In
lovely.
the caretaker's house?
Uh-huh. And
Do you know who that was?
I don't remember the name. I really don't.
But your uncle, you think he owned it?
I think he owned it, or certainly a big piece of the pie. See, that's why I couldn't say exactly. But we always went out there, and that's how we started to come
Now,
up
was
here.
his wife your mother's sister or your grandmother's sister?
His wife was my mother's aunt,
So it was your grandmother's sister?
apparently. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So that was
See, my sister could reel this stuff off like that,
Yeah,
you know.
we missed your sister, didn't we?
Yeah, well, you know, 5 years difference makes a big
Well,
thing
sure
in
it
a
does.
youngster, you know, in
Sure.
remembering stuff, yeah.
Sometimes even the ones that remembered World War II and the ones that don't remember it, just that short.
Just, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know if your Uncle Albert then sold the whole ranch to one party or?
Boy, I think they did, and I'm not sure. I think whoever bought it after that, I don't know if they used one of the barns as a riding arena or what, or I'm not really sure about that because I have not been out there in, well, probably since they owned it. And
Oh,
I,
really?
yeah, I wouldn't know the way to go out there anymore.
Oh, but
And-
now when you went, you said you went in the summertime,
Yes, in the summer.
just to,
Yeah,
when you were staying here, but you go out
no,
there?
no, this was prior, once my dad bought this, why we came here.
Oh, okay.
See, so we just went up there, and that was that.
Did you spend the whole summer there
We would
also?
spend the whole summer there.
No kidding. Great.
Yep.
So that was in the late 20s.
I
You were
would,
born in
I would,
24.
I would assume, yeah, I would
And
assume.
did your family talk about having done that for a long time?
Done what?
Gone to the South Branch Ranch?
I don't remember. We
Don't
just
remember.
did, you know.
Just did it. It was
We
something
just
big.
did, and we had the one woman and her son. She was kind of a cook and general housekeeper who went with us. Everybody went.
From Detroit you brought them
Yeah,
with you?
the household went. Yeah.
Well, how nice.
Yeah, it was nice. So,
Yeah.
and then, like I said, when my dad found this piece of property, it was, you know, why he loved the water, and he wanted a place of his own. See, so that's what we did.
Great. Well, he made a good investment, I would think.
Well, you know, they never thought of it as an
No.
investment.
I'm sure not.
You know, he bought the place with very little money down and a handshake.
Do you know who you purchased it from?
I think it was probably a realtor, but I think a King family owned it. I think I mentioned that to you. A King family.
Yeah, I don't remember, but then I don't remember much either.
And as I understand, there was supposed to have been, like at our trail when you come in, a little store in there. And I also had heard that the property in this part of northern Michigan had been sold to many immigrants as a wonderful farming thing. You know,
yes.
what we
Oh.
raise rocks and sand is what we raise.
Well, they
But,
were.
and they didn't, but instead of Wisconsin, where, you know, it's a big dairy state. And so, and then we had the big Swedish settlement here, which I think was part of the immigration group that came over. But, so I don't really know if he bought it from Mr. King or it was a realtor probably, you know.
Do you have an old abstract?
No,
No.
no, I'm lucky if I can keep my desk straight.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. So, your family has been coming to this exact place
Since
for-
I would say 27, 28.
Yeah,
It's been a long time.
that's a long time.
Yeah.
It'll be 80 years soon.
So it never seemed like any transition when my husband and I moved up here permanently because it was always 4 or 5 months of the year,
Sure.
you know, like
When
that.
did you come permanently?
In 82.
Oh, so you've
Yeah,
been here
in
20
82.
over 20
Yeah,
years.
yeah. I don't know where it's gone to. I'm
Isn't
not
that
even
true?
unpacked. Of course, I'm a pack rat. I mean, if I get through anything, I collect it,
Uh-huh.
you know. So don't bother to dust it.
So, now your husband, you said, was retired when you came here?
Yes. Yeah.
So who built all the other homes? Or
Uh,
cottages or what?
Well, this is my brother Robert's home over here.
Oh, okay.
That would be Robert and Muriel.
Okay.
And then the house at the back, the beige house, that was at one time a little ice house. And in the winter, the people went out with their horses and sleds, cut the ice out of the lake and brought it back, and they had a lot of straw and that stuff. Well, we decided to tear it down. And my brother and husband and friends, we built one big rec room, and it had a fireplace.
Where the ice house had
Where the ice house had been. And we had people who worked for us stay in it for a while, but we got rid of it. And so my nephew, that would be Riney, my brother's son, We call it, yeah, that's our
Is there
Jack.
another Riney?
He was a Riney too.
There's the fourth one.
Well,
Isn't that something? They like that name.
it primarily was Rhinerius, but that's so long that they
Yeah.
just said Riney. So anyway, he decided they wanted a place of their own too, so they elaborated on this one big rec room.
Oh.
And as a result, after he and his wife decided they would like to retire up here, he added on.
Oh.
See, he added on. And he had his own plumbing business in Detroit.
Mm.
And being a plumber, he had ended up with 2 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms.
Ah.
But now they have expanded that. But
What is his wife's name?
his wife's name is Patricia.
They
And she's from Detroit.
They live here now?
Yes, they're here
Wow.
permanently.
Oh, how nice.
She's been extremely ill this winter.
Oh. That's not good.
No.
How much land did your
Well, we've
father
got
buy?
here a little over 40 acres.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, yeah.
So you have that ball field out there?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and everybody
Isn't that
plays in it.
wonderful?
We had a fire in it many, many years ago. And it was some of the kids went down there and were trying to smoke, and they didn't put the cigarettes out. And it just crept into, fortunately, an oak grove, which goes slower. And, you know, the big bell we had out here, which I replaced after that storm in '95, when you rang that, that meant fire. And all the neighbors would come.
Oh.
So that's how we put it out. And it started again that night, but we did get it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did
so.
you lose trees?
Oh, yeah, there
Or
was,
what?
oh, yeah,
Did
yeah,
the
yeah.
fire-
But it's a lot of shrub stuff back there, you know. But many of the people around here, they go and play ball, you know. So,
Shirley has talked about the ball games.
oh, yeah, we have some people who come up here, and they all go play ball, even if you're that small. Somebody will hit
Help
the
you.
ball for you and then let the little kids run,
Sure.
you know. So,
Well, how
but it's a
nice.
big event, yeah,
Why, sure.
big event.
Why, sure. Well, that
And the barn where you drove in,
Mm-hmm.
that was here when my dad bought the property.
Oh, okay.
And at one time, my brother found a date scratched on one of the embers, and we could never find it again. We would look, and it was early 18s, I think, 1800s. I think, see, but we'd go out there. He said, well, I don't know if I was sober or drunk, but he said, I've looked for that thing so many times, cannot find
Never
it.
found it again.
Never found it again. Never found it, so
Isn't that something?
probably staring us right in the face,
Probably.
you know.
Probably too
Yeah.
close.
And we have a ping pong table in one area of it now, and I park my car in the other end, you know. I'd love to have an attached garage, particularly in this weather, but I just have a wagon. I haul groceries in and out.
Oh, that works for you.
Yeah, that's right, you know. Can't be too pampered.
Now, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your brother, Robert, who I took notes at one time that he built the building that is now Fred's
He did
Restaurant.
indeed, yeah. He and his wife moved up here. Bob had worked for, I think it was the Detroit News, and anyway, they came up here, and he built the bar with many of my dad's suggestions, and then I don't know how long they had it, and then it was sold to someone. I don't know if it was a Bob McGinnis and somebody, but then the bowling alley was added on.
Oh,
But
he didn't add the building.
No, it was just a bar
You know
then.
what year he built it?
Oh, golly. Well, it had to be in the 40s sometime, I would think.
So maybe even during World War II, are you thinking?
No, I think it would be, I think it was after that. I'm trying to think, because Bob was in the Merchant Marine,
Oh,
see, so, and he wasn't married. So it had to be after the war.
okay.
Had to be after the war.
And did he start it did he run it then, or did he just?
Oh,
run
no,
the building?
he ran it.
Okay.
Yeah, he ran a real tight ship there, yep. And then
he
it was
still-
closed on Sunday, and he and his wife would go down and clean, you know, to make sure everything was nice.
So did they start out as just a bar, or was it a restaurant?
I think it was just a bar. I don't recall food. They probably had potato chips and stuff like that, but it was not a,
Didn't start as a restaurant.
no.
And what did he call it?
I think it was Bob's Tavern.
Neat.
Yeah, I think, you know,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay, well, very good. So he built that himself.
Mm.
He was a contractor downstate, you said?
Yeah, Bob was a builder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then he never lived here after that? Then did he?
They lived here. Oh, they sold the bar, and his wife wanted to go back to Detroit.
Mm.
And she felt the school system wasn't as good up here.
Mm.
But anyway, they enjoyed the early years of their daughter because it was easy for her to go out and go skiing with the local kids, where down there you just don't go. You have to, get on a bus and go to Mount Holly or whatever. So, but that's primarily,
So that's Janice.
that would be Janice.
So she's quite a skier. Does she still ski?
Not so much anymore. I can't believe it. She's close to 60. How'd you get so old so fast? But she's an attorney.
Mm. Oh, is she?
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know that.
And her husband is in the horse business.
Mm-hmm. Well, she
Yeah.
must be getting close to retirement then.
Well, I don't know what retirement would be for them. I mean, slow down, I suppose.
Yeah. Are they up here quite a bit?
Yeah, they're up here. But the son is in college down at Albion, and so it's back and forth, and this is his senior year.
Is it really? No
I
kidding.
can't believe it. And so they will be busy, I know, because,
Sure.
she said, I don't know where the time has gone.
No, isn't it
4 years.
Yeah,
He
that
has a
does go
couple
fast.
more to go.
Well, let me think now what else I want to ask you about. I asked you about your parents and your grandparents. Well, what do you remember when you were younger about going into Roscommon? Did you go into town very often?
We went in probably maybe once a week because my dad would tell us, you're fortunate to be up here where so many kids in the city don't have a lake, this, that, and the other. So we would go in, and DeWales had their drugstore then, and they had the best ice cream.
Oh,
So we would have ice cream and so on. And also, they had a slot machine.
they did.
They did indeed. I didn't know
That's a
what they
new
were.
story.
Yeah, and I think it was a nickel one.
Oh,
Yeah, they
fun.
had a slot machine. So that was new.
Yeah.
You know,
You
and-
enjoyed that, huh?
Well, we never,
Or did your
it
brothers?
was, we never had money to, if we wanted the ice cream, you didn't have a lot of
Then you
extra.
didn't.
Well, it's just, people just didn't give kids allowances, I mean, as I recall.
Mhm.
If you were part of the family, why, you helped.
Mhm.
It was,
Sure.
you're part of the family. I mean, you don't make all the garbage yourself, you make some too.
Mhm.
So it was like that, but we were always in the water, and I see the young people today, they sit on the beach, bake their brains out,
Mhm.
where we had a raft, and we would go out and swim and play King on the Mountain, try and knock the other guy off,
Off the raft.
So we were always in the water, not just sunbathing,
Yeah.
and we did a lot of fishing.
Oh, did you?
My dad would go out on Friday. We are not Catholic. He was Lutheran, and my mother was a Baptist. And I sang in I don't know how many different churches down in Detroit because it was a good choir and thing. But he would go out on Friday, and he'd say, well, we'll have fish tonight. We would get perch like 16 inches, 14 inches.
Oh.
I mean, it's hard to believe today, and they were just absolutely gorgeous. So, and I can't believe the price of the fish today around here, So, so that was something. And my brother and I, why, we used to get into mischief, around the place.
Now
And
your younger brother, Bob, you're talking
yeah,
about?
oh yeah, we had a handyman,
How
and
close in age were you?
I think year and a half or
Oh,
3,
so
2
pretty
years.
close.
Yeah. Well, no, I think there were 4 of us, and I think we were almost 4 apart.
Oh.
Somewhere in there, could have been a few months, one way or the other.
Oh, I had a thought and I lost it. Darn it. Oh, I was going to ask if when your father bought this property, when did you have electricity here? Because you must have started out.
Oh, not for a long time. We had the oil lamps,
Good.
and then he put in a system. It was called a Delco system, and it would be kind of, I guess, like a generator type thing. I'm not sure. And that was the engine part was out in the big barn where the ping pong table is. It was on a raised cement platform.
Oh.
But other than that, we had an outhouse, you went to, and we just had the Coleman lanterns and oil lamps up here for a long time. A long
Really?
time. Yep. Very, very rustic.
Yeah. And you were here all summer, so you
All,
were
all
used to it.
summer. You
Sure.
know, we survived.
Why, sure.
Yeah.
Did you have to help your mother cook?
Oh, sure.
Did
Oh,
you?
sure.
Did you
Yeah.
like, you like to cook?
I like to cook. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That helps.
we had so much company. You know, anytime you have a summer cottage and you're on the water, you
It's
have
like a
people
magic, isn't it?
coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of relatives that came?
Oh.
Big family?
And I know my sister and I, we had a little cot over here in the corner. It was a screen porch, and we would never get to sleep in our bedroom. It was always full of company. And I used to tell her, I said, when I grow up, I'm not giving up my room for anyone.
Did you stick to it?
Yep.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So when were the cottages built?
Oh, my dad built them as guest cottages.
Oh,
We had so many people.
really? So already in the 30s,
Uh,
40s?
Probably late 30s, I guess. But we had a man pull in one day, and it was hot, and he had 4 or 5 children in the back of the car. And he asked my dad, do you know of any place I could rent just tonight so I can, you know, I think he was going to kill all the kids just to get them out of the car. And my dad said, well, if you want, you can stay here for the night, you know. And we let the kids out, and they ran and so on, and that's kind of how things started.
Oh, it started,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah,
Really?
yeah. But he
That's
came
wonderful.
back for a number of years, you know, with his wife.
Sure.
Yeah, but that I can see him today. He was so tired. He'd been all over trying to find a place. They probably didn't have motels and things, and he certainly wasn't affluent enough just to go any place, you know, with that many children.
Sure.
So that was that.
Do you know anything about a coal hotel that was on the lake at one time?
No. Uh-uh.
You
I
don't?
know people have asked me that because of the name.
Yeah. I interviewed one lady who was near to 100. She was in her late 90s, and she remembered working at the coal hotel. as
Cool.
a
That wasn't
youngster.
Burdell, was it? The Burdell?
No.
A
No,
coal.
it was not
No,
the Burdell.
no. I know I've
It
been
was
in.
on this side. She thought it was not far from Maplehurst. So, but we've never seen a picture or had
Well, that could be.
reference to it.
Yeah. No, I just don't know anything about that.
No.
Never
So
heard of it.
Your husband's family then, were they from around here?
No, my mother-in-law was a school teacher from Erie, Minnesota,
Oh,
and my Dr. Cole Sr. was, yeah, he was from Minnesota, and but he had an opportunity after he put himself primarily through med school, and to come down to the Detroit area. So they moved down there, and then during the war he was over there all 4 years, and he ran a hospital in Italy. And both of their sons, that would be Martin and Wyman Jr., were over there. And the daughter was in the military in some capacity,
really?
you
So
know.
was your husband an MD?
No, he went for about a year and a half, but the other brother, he seemed, well, you know, sometimes there's a golden hair boy in each family. And so anyway, Wyman Jr., he proceeded, and Dr. Cole Sr. was a pediatrician, and then the son, he went into pediatrics too.
Oh.
Marty was a chemical engineer. He worked for Occidental Petroleum.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
one company his whole career?
uh,
He retired from there?
well, he worked other jobs earlier, but at one time it was Utilite, and then, I forget the second company, and then Occidental bought it out. But it was primarily always in the chemical end of things, in plating.
Oh,
His accounts were like at Bay City or Flint, where they did the parts of the cars, you know.
sure.
But it was all chemical. Everything had to balance and this, that, and the other, you know. So,
Very good. Was a good career, I'd say.
yes, he enjoyed it very much.
Sure.
Yeah, he enjoyed
Sure.
it very much.
So did your in-laws ever come up here?
Oh, yes,
Were they
sure.
still
Oh, yeah.
alive when you-
And they finally retired out to Walnut Creek in California because the daughter had moved out there with her husband. He worked for Schaefer Penn. And so they just thought, well, they liked the West, the climate would be better and that, but Mrs. Cole told me often, she said, I miss the change in seasons, you know, and as nice as this is, you know, and I said, well, I don't think I could handle all the quivers of the earth and all this and that, but she said, well, you kind of get used to it. She said, I haven't. But they both died out there. We flew out and then back, you know. So, but
What year did your husband die?
Marty died 1996.
Oh, okay.
He's gone 8 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you've had a nice time up here then.
Oh,
So
yes.
you've had these rentals for a long time, 40-some years then.
I
Or
guess
not that long, maybe
I don't
30
think it's
some.
that long.
Yeah.
And it was, like I said, it was primarily guest cottages,
Really?
you know. And, of course, now with the taxes, it's almost mandatory that you do something, you know.
Oh, I imagine so.
It's terrible.
How much frontage do you have on the lake?
About 600 feet,
Do you?
yeah, yeah. And that wasn't a big deal then,
No.
you know.
Not years ago.
No. In fact, 40 acres wasn't a big deal. 20 was very common. And today they speak in lots, you know.
Yeah.
My lot is such and such, but nobody wanted it. And it was just a 2-track trail out from Roscommon, you know, all of that.
When you first came up to South Branch Ranch, though, you already had a car. You didn't come by train.
Oh, no, we had a car.
You had a
Yeah,
car.
yeah, yeah. I was very sorry that they discontinued the train up here. The old train house there in Roscommon, I had told my brother Bob, I said, Bob, we should buy that, because they wanted hardly anything for it. He looked at me and he said, what would you do with it? I said, I don't know yet, but I would buy it. And, you know, they tore it down and now it's a bunch of weeds. They use it for some kind of a parking lot. I said, you could have an ice cream shop there and sandwiches. You could have a boutique
Oh, it
of
could have been
sorts.
so many things.
Oh, and it was very picturesque.
It was
Looked
beautiful.
just like, you know, Gary Cooper was going to walk in off the street,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
So, and Mrs. Stewart, who was part of the hardware, why, she wanted to do something with it, too.
Apparently quite a few people did.
Oh,
It
yeah.
just didn't happen.
I don't know how you would go about that, sign a petition and get people to do something, but I don't always think the city fathers know best,
Yeah.
you know.
And you always want, I have yet to hear whose decision it was in the end, that, you know, they sold it for salvage.
I
The guy
know,
that
I
tore it
know.
Took it down.
Well, I would like to
There
know
are pieces
his...
of it here and there around town. But
Well, I'd like to know his motive, or what was in it for him.
right. Or did the railroad...
Well, do they own the or probably where the tracks come
The
through?
railroad, yes. The railroad still has right of way there, I think.
Well, yeah, they would have the right of way. But I just loved it because of the bricks, you know.
Yeah, the
It could be a lovely patio. I could
Yeah.
just see that thing, and he said, what would we do with it? I said, well, if we had to move it, we could put it in the back field. Do something with it. But I really thought that was a big mistake.
Yeah.
And
We all
Grayling,
feel that way.
yeah, Grayling has, look what they've done with theirs, you know.
Beautiful museum.
So, but I don't know how that came about. I also would like to know who was instrumental in getting rid of that.
Never
See,
found out.
he had no vision.
Right. What else do you remember about the village besides the whales? Did you go to church in town or anything?
I often went, I sang one time out here at the Messiah Lutheran Church.
Did you?
Yeah,
That's
and when it was
wonderful.
just a little cracker box.
It is still a little cool.
Well, yeah, but, and we didn't go as much up here during the summer, see. But I've been to pretty much all of them. And of course, living up here now, you have friends of all denominations, and
Sure.
everybody goes to everybody's churches,
Yeah.
which I think
It's
is
nice.
good.
Yes, it is very
Okay.
nice.
Get to know the
Quite
person.
ecumenical.
Huh?
We're quite ecumenical.
Oh, very, very,
Yeah,
very,
so
yeah,
it's nice.
yeah.
Did you make friends with any of the kids in town when you
Not really. You know, do you know Melvin Henderson? Well, Mel has worked for us since he was a teenager, early teens. He just helped rake, you know. And Mel will say, well, you know Lena, so-and-so, da-da-da-da-da. I said, Melvin, I'm not local. I'm from the city, and I mean, I don't know. I didn't mean that, you know, as being discriminatory, but the fact that I didn't know a lot of the local people.
Sure, because you didn't go to school with those kids.
No, and I remember when Mrs. McCready or the McCreadys had the corner grocery store there. Had a lot of stuff in barrels, which kids always thought were interesting, you know, that type thing. But, and I remember, oh, what was his name? He had the store right next to the railroad track. You walked up a couple of stairs to
Originally
go.
it was Chase's.
No,
No,
that wasn't the
it's all
name.
right.
I'll think of
McConkey's.
it. No, not more McConkey's. Well, I knew them because we were in there a lot, yeah. Yeah.
You're talking about the building right next to
It would be
McConkey's?
across the street, on the other
Oh,
side of the
across
street. Price.
Prices.
Yeah, yeah. Was it Andrew Price? Was that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
AJ.
And I forget what they sold in there, but I remember going in that.
Yeah.
But we didn't get into town very much, you know.
Didn't you?
No. Mm-mm. No, not at all. So
Did you get, now the Love Dairy was not too far.
he used to deliver
Okay.
milk.
Did he deliver
Mhm.
milk to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
He's
have
very
a couple
nice
of their
man.
bottles from the Love
Oh,
Dairy.
really?
They love
Oh,
Love
that's-
Dairy on
Yeah. And he was a real nice man. Real nice man. And there was another family, you know where the teepee restaurant is? Well, when you come out of town, let's see, if you come out of town, the, what is the street where the theater is on?
Main Street.
Main. Okay, if you come straight out to the point there where you get onto the federal highway, well, where that point is, there was a triangle in there, and there was a farm.
Oh.
And my mother used to go there and buy vegetables and flowers. Of course, they were older than me then, but they had a daughter who was, she just flopped around on the floor. She was just so an invalid, and mentally as well as physically, you know. And I don't know whatever happened, but they were always there, and she would always make a point to stop and buy whatever she could from them. And even Mel, who, you know, he's been here forever, I said, Mel, I can't talk about you because you're related to a cousin or something. But he doesn't even remember that either, so it goes back a long way. But they were right on that corner. Had a little house, and they just, I don't know how they made things go, but this girl was just pitiful. She just flopped around on the floor. You know. So I remember that.
Then between, just not too far from here, were there farms here?
I don't there probably were going out toward Grayling. I don't recall.
Going that way.
If you go,
When you first came here, then, how small were these trees? Because these have certainly grown up.
oh,
Was it totally wooded when you came?
it was wooded.
Was
It
it?
was wooded.
Oh,
But
okay.
I know some of them are now enormous by comparison, you know. Yeah. But I don't think kids really pay that much attention. No, you know. I know one thing, our beach was different.
Oh, how different was it?
Well, we used to have another 30, 35, 40 feet out.
Oh, really? You had more sand then. The lake level was lower?
Well, I mean, you know, a lake has a certain amount of aging, which I will agree with. But I don't know who runs the dam down there and it used to be put a board in and take it out and so on. But a lot of people, they have huge boats, and they expect to only walk out about 2 feet of water and get into their boat. So they want it deep enough so they can hop in. And as a result, the water has just eaten away our beach. And we have put in these decks so people, I mean, including the family, can sit on it. There's no beach.
Really?
I mean, there wouldn't be enough beach from that window to this wall.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, yeah. So I've had a lot of the people here looking at it, and they said we had probably some of the worst erosion on the lake. And of course, to do anything about it is extremely costly, extremely. So I don't know, but we try and do the best we can, you know. We don't fertilize because you get the runoff into the lake. And I remember going with the extension group. I was president of that for about, I think it was 3 times. Anyway, we went out to Kirkland, and we went around to all the departments. And the biology professor or teacher said part of the pollution was all the people wanting to have perfect lawns, you know, right to the edge of the lake. And my dad, the most he'd let my mother do, we had a little round garden with stones around it. He said, plant flowers there, but we touch nothing that's here. Leave it alone. We never touched it.
Great.
And the bushes come up about that high every year.
Uh-huh.
Then they will. Then they come up. See,
Uh-huh.
so you leave nature alone.
Sure.
See? And in the back, we've got a little poor type grass. It's got weeds, but I really don't care as long as it's green.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a place where you grow lush grass. I mean, if that's your thing, you know,
Come here.
don't come here. See? But and I have signs around like don't shampoo your hair in the lake and don't do this and that and the other.
Mm-hmm.
See? But I don't know. Too many people up here, I think.
Yeah.
Well, they bring the
Lake is
city with them.
Overused.
Yeah, it is. There are boats that will go by here on a weekend, and they will rattle the sun catchers on the windows. Now, that's too large a boat for this lake.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you're aware of the back lotters and the front lotters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Hatfield and the McCoy battle.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a meeting, a number of years ago when this thing was really getting going. And I couldn't believe how they talked to one another. And this one lady next to me said, "Where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a visitor here." I was afraid to say anything. I thought she might punch me. But they seem to think that front lotters don't want anyone to touch the lake and that they want to keep it private. That's not the case.
No, but you'd like to preserve it.
To preserve it. But
Yeah.
see, they can't, they don't understand that. And as I understand, we are the only lake in Michigan that allows overnight boats.
Oh, really?
And we're the only lake in Michigan that has 2 state parks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was suggested one time at one of these meetings, why don't they put in, well, I won't say marinas, but places where you can pay for a slip to put your boat in. Now, nobody will be satisfied. I mean, everyone,
No real good answer.
But I know it's hard to haul a pontoon in and out every day. And so if you wanted to have these things and you would pay $600, $700, $800, $900 a season,
Mm-hmm.
that would maintain the beach area where this is, see, and maybe have somebody to keep an eye on things.
Sure.
And if you go up to, well, anything like Petoskey, Harbor Springs, they all have that. And in Detroit, I don't think you could rent a slip for under $1,200 to $1,500.
Really?
See, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
See, and the smaller boats you can haul in and out. So I don't know what the answer is there. It's
Yeah.
it's pitiful, really.
It is. It's a shame because the lake is being so overused.
Well, one lady at this meeting, she lived down there on the lake, and somebody was really saying something bad about the front lotters, and she got up and she said, "I have no problem with people using the lake," but she said she was very close to the road that be Maplehurst going down there. She said, "But how would you like somebody at 3 in the morning? They're out there partying, and then come in off the water and go to the bathroom on your front lawn?" See? Well, she said it happens.
Sure.
She said it
Yeah.
happens. See?
Yeah.
So
Sure
it's an ongoing problem,
is.
but I don't know how it'll ever be solved.
I don't know either. There
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be a easy answer.
Well, I think a lot of your realty companies sell properties saying, "Hey, you're on this road, you just zip right down to the lake, get yourself a boat, and put it in." See, because if you go back into some of these subdivisions, the homes are lovely. They got great big boats. Now you know they're going to put those boats out there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
So
Well, we have to all keep working on that.
I know it. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
It's ongoing.
It is ongoing.
You know.
It is. Okay. Well, what else can we remember about good old Roscommon?
I
What
don't.
do you remember about the lake when you first came here? Did you go out on boat? Did you?
Yeah, we had a little wooden
were you a
rowboats.
sailboat? Oh, little wooden rowboat?
Yeah, rowboats. Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
what you fished from?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's right. Nothing fancy, you know. And my dad did get another motorboat eventually, you know, an inboard motor, but we just had rowboats.
Mhm.
We rowed out if we didn't have a motor.
Sure.
You know, we did finally get a little 2-horse motor, and we
Uh-huh.
would go out. But you didn't see all the traffic out here, you know.
I bet you were an excellent swimmer.
I did a lot of swimming, and I
Mhm.
go every morning, go swimming.
Great.
You know, I bite the bullet till I got underneath, because sometimes it was chilly.
Yeah.
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 I don't do it now. I think my arthritis kind of rules the roost, you know.
Good
No.
old Arthur.
A good old
He's in
Arthur.
charge. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, I think we covered Uncle Albert. His last name was Lincoln, right?
Mm-hmm.
That owned the South Branch Ranch. Or was part owner.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if his total, he may have, I don't know. See, I don't know how that all came together.
Yeah, well, the people who own it now it's that Forest Dunes,
Mm-hmm.
they have inquired of the Historical Society what history we know of that
Mm-hmm.
property. And everyone seems to know about the Carradas owning it in the 30s.
Yeah.
But no one seems to know who, so he would have been prior to the
Oh,
Carradas.
yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So that's a help to us to at
Yeah,
least have
yeah.
his name.
And I think, well, the Corrado still owns something down here on the lake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And there was a time my dad had just purchased the place, and big black car drove in one day. It was Mr. Zarelli. He was, you know, part of the group.
mm-hmm.
And you know, he said, I would like to buy.
Drove in here or out at the ranch? You're talking
No,
about?
no, drove in
Here.
here. This is,
Mhm.
yeah. And so this had to be in the late 20s, because my dad had just, you know, had purchased the place, and he wanted to buy it. My dad said, well, I've got 4 kids, you know, and I wanted some property. And he says, well, I do too. I got a big family, and I'd like a bigger piece of property. And but he said, I thank you for, you know, telling me. He said, if you ever change your mind, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he bought further down, you know, south of us.
Mm-hmm.
But my brother used to play with some of them. You know, there weren't that many kids up here,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Sure.
that type thing. And then my husband went to Howe Military School with one of them, and he's a great guy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but it was
Or the
different.
Carradas or the Zarelli?
Uh, I think it was a Carrara. See, I'm not sure. I'd have to, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it was Carrara.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Now going north from here along the shore, when you first came up here, those homes probably weren't there. Or
They
were
weren't there. Mm-mm.
Those have all
The only
gone up.
place that would have been there would have been John Shear. And who is, well, he is, are you familiar with Gallagher?
Mm-hmm.
Well, John Shear, John Shear's daughter, Dorothy, married Francis Gallagher.
Oh, okay.
And, of course, Francis had Teresa, we call her Cookie,
Mm-hmm.
and Terry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that comes from.
And that guy was there when you...
Yeah, that was, as far, yeah, that was there.
when you-
And they would rent their house out in the summer and then live in the garage during the winter, you know, and go down and visit, you know.
Mhm.
But they were, because we didn't have a phone, and if somebody called, why, they would get a hold of the Shears, and then somebody would walk down and say you had a phone call, you know.
Mhm.
So that was nice.
Well, it was.
But I don't know about anything else. You know, we've just
Past
been,
that, then beyond that would have been starting Lakeside or Cottage Grove.
Pinewood starts
Pinewood
next.
first.
Yeah, Pinewoods and Cottage
That
Grove.
must have been there already then.
Yeah, and then Lakeside. And then, of course, there was a, down in, we take this old trail, I don't know if it's there anymore, you would drive down in, and there was a riding stable down in there. That was the Spots Riding Stable.
Oh.
And all of, her name was Rose Spots, Emma and Rose Spots. And all of their people were from usually Cottage Grove, Pinewood.
customers?
Their customers, you know. And she was very English. She was from England. And so she was always well attired in her habit. And she would teach the kids, you know. See, now we had horses at one time. We had 4 horses here because my mother was a rider. And so we would meet Rosie and we'd go out for evening rides.
Well, that had to be fun riding horses.
Oh,
around
it was.
here.
It was. And then up in the field, why, we had a sulky cart. You know what that is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, my mother liked the sulkies. She was primarily from Kentucky.
Oh,
And we'd get up there and ride the sulky carts around. Yeah.
how fun.
But we did a lot of riding, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in this little barn out here now, which is a tool barn. But that originally had the stalls in it and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
then they would take them to the field for the day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the fellow who took care of the horses, well, he would bring them back
So
in
that
the
was in the
evening.
30s because you were still
Yeah,
before you were
had to
married.
be. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Good for you.
It's like a catharsis. If I don't can tomatoes in the fall, the world is not right,
That's right.
you know? And I give them,
Straight.
I give them as gifts, you know, if they return the jar. Put your head down, put your head down. So, but
Now you buying by the bushel?
yeah, I buy them usually at Bart's. I'll go over to Bart's. I used to buy them from the bushel basket in town, and I was sorry to see them go, you know. But I go over to Bart's and get them. I love to can them. We always.
Well, I say good for you.
I don't know if they teach that in school anymore. In fact, I learned to make orange marmalade
Can't
in the
imagine.
9th grade. They still had a cooking class. Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Alger Elementary School, and then Hutchins Intermediate, and then Northern High School, and then I went a couple of years to Mary Grove College. And then I went to business school,
Oh, wow.
you know. So, and then I'd be up here in the summer to help things out.
Mm-hmm. Did you work after college down
Oh,
there?
oh yeah, I worked at the Bank of the Commonwealth,
You did.
and I also worked for a publishing company.
Oh, good
So,
for you.
yeah, I liked
So you
it.
have quite a history.
Well,
Are you an avid reader?
not really too much anymore. No, no. I watch a lot of TV if I don't fall asleep. Read a lot of cookbooks.
And you're still active in your extension group?
Yes, we call ourselves the Higgins Lake Study Group now. At one time, they raised, when I joined, it was $5 a year. And it went up to $10, got up to $23.
Oh,
So I invited the lady from Lansing over to tell us how come. And, well, this is more, that's more. And I said, how much is for the administrative part of it? Well, she agreed. And so the club, we just, this is a democratic thing. We all voted not to belong. I did all the programming. I still do.
good.
And we were carrying on with the same thing, only we didn't have to pay any big money. We charge $5 a year now, like we did in the beginning.
Well, good for you.
Yeah. So, and I belong to TOPS. Tried to watch the weight thing, and I do the programming there. So I take everybody down in April and in November to the Mid-Michigan College at Harrison, and the local kids there. They put on some very nice plays. So we do that. And then in October, the study group, as long as I can fill a bus, they go up to Mackinac City to the theater up there. Yeah, so that keeps them busy.
Sure, and that keeps you busy, too.
Well, what I
It
do,
takes something to organize all that.
yeah, well, you get used to it. I mean, it's no big thing. I just wish, have a nice day. I don't go.
Oh, you don't go. Oh.
I don't want to be trapped for 3 hours. It's just that I think my hip bothers me to sit a lot,
Sure.
But by the time I corral them all and get them on the bus and this and that and the other and that, and they have a good time.
Sure. Well,
They have a
sure.
good time. So,
Oh, that's
and they all like to go
nice that you do
gambling.
that. Oh,
I've arranged a few of those.
Mm-hmm.
That still amazes me how many
Yeah.
women gamble,
Yeah, that is something, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, anything else you want to share about your family or
Well,
your time up here?
I looked forward always to living permanently up here. Although I miss Detroit in some ways, but now that I'm older, I don't miss it because we did so many of the things, and my husband and I were both opera buffs, and we could go to the opera or the symphonies and all this and that, which you don't have quite the access to. And a lot of plays and that came to town we went to, and activities. So there is that, I think, when you're younger. But you have good memories, and I have a lot of videos, I think I have all of, I've got a lot of operas and the Jeanette MacDonald and Nelson Eddy stuff, so, and I play them over and over and over and listen to Rebecca, the story of Rebecca. Ooh.
I'm not very cultured, I don't think.
Well, there's a book by Daphne Murray. It's excellent. And
Well, it seems like we have that at the Gallimore House. We have a lot of books donated to the Historical Society.
Okay, yeah.
And I think Rebecca is one of them.
How about Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte? Well, that's another one I love. It's going to be on this, I think, Monday night, the movie again.
Oh, is it?
Laurence Olivier and Vivian Leigh. And it's very good, very good. So I watch those about once a year, and I go with Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Love that. You know about that one? If you can get past the romantics of Gone with the Wind and see what happened to the South after that, you would have a better understanding of why those people feel maybe, it's bred in them. I mean,
Sure it is.
kids come into the world, they don't know, but my husband had one account down in Greenville, what was it, Mississippi, one of them down there, and this man was lovely to him. And so at lunchtime, he said, well, there's a, not a diner, but a little restaurant there in town. And he said, food's very nice. So Marty went over, and he sat at the lunch counter, And so the man who owned the plant came in, and he just nodded to him, and he walked over and sat at a table with some of his buddies. He would not eat. I told Marty, I said, well, you're a Yankee boy. And that still prevails, see? And then another account he had in Tennessee, Haywood Wakefield, they're a furniture company. They do a lot of chrome, which the plating thing, dinette sets and so on. And he was down there, and of course every day he would always wear a business suit and that, and so they told him, now, do what you have to do, but at night, there was a Holiday Inn in town, he said, you go in there, eat there, go in the bar and get drunk there, but don't go outside because you'll look like a revenuer. And he did that. And so he said, yeah, they'd look at me, a little bit, who's this guy down here? Yeah, yeah.
He's not one
So
of us.
you play by the rules, see? Yeah.
What do you remember about bootlegging around here?
Bootleg? Oh, I didn't know anything about it.
Don't know anything about
No. I made wine one time. I don't know how I got into that. Somebody did it, and it wasn't too bad. And it's fascinating. I had this big jug, and it would have to glup, blup, 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 so many times, and my brother would say, Lena, that stuff is no good. It wasn't too bad,
Well, good for you.
Yeah, it was just, I was curious,
Well,
so
sure.
did that for a while. But my mother made wine, and as I recall it, if you went to visit, you were served a little glass of wine, because I have some of her glasses, and a piece of fruit cake. So you weren't served like a highball or something like that. And she would make a beautiful fruit cake, and always enough for the next year. Then you poke holes in it, and you pour brandy on it, and it was wrapped in cheesecloth and kept in a tin. And that would be used then for the next holiday. And when you sliced it, why, it could be almost paper thin. And it was delicious, But that's what was served then. I don't recall ever seeing any so-called drinks served. I didn't know about them. But we did, she would serve the wine, because that was accepted.
Well, sure. How nice.
Yeah.
Well, we sure appreciate your sharing all this.
Well, I don't think I told you very much.
Well, especially, yes, you have, and we really were curious about the South Branch Ranch.
Well, I'm curious myself. Do the Corrados still own it?
Oh no, it's that Forest Dunes golf
Oh, that's
thing,
right.
you know.
So is it like a community of houses out there?
Well, they intended it to be that, and I understand the golf course is absolutely wonderful, and there's a clubhouse, beautiful,
oh.
beautiful. This is just beautiful and real, very good food. The chef who was at the Fifth Street Grill is working out there,
Oh.
and apparently they're only serving dinners at this time.
Well, I wish I had some more information because I get a lot of golfers up here.
Oh, well,
If they have any brochures.
I bet they do because they say it's absolutely most wonderful
Yeah.
golf course.
I was sorry to see the Fifth Avenue Grill close.
Yes, well, we're hoping that someone will reopen it. I
But-
believe it's for sale.
But I think that was a long shot to survive in Roscommon
Mhm.
because I ate there several times, and I have neighbors up here down next to by the Gallaghers, and they would only eat there. And of course, the prices it was very pricey.
Mhm.
But they owned their own bakery and stuff,
The
and
food was good.
the food was good.
Mhm.
The food was good.
Well, we're hoping it'll come back. The town is looking a little sad at the moment.
I know
It's
it.
an empty store.
Well, in the village shop, do you recall that?
Oh, I sure do.
And I really relied on them, you
Mhm.
know, and I was sorry to see that go.
Yeah.
Because people now, if they have to shop, they'll either go to Grayling or Houghton Lake,
Mhm.
and as long as I have to go to the store, I'll go to the grocery there, and I'll go
Sure.
this and that and the
Oh,
other.
Domino's.
That's right.
Mhm.
So, but I don't know with the Roscommon, it just kind of hangs in there, and that's about it.
Mhm.
See?
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Galmore boarding house when you were
No,
young?
no,
No,
see?
you don't.
I have been
Well,
in
that
there.
was open till 1931, but you would have been quite small.
Yeah, yeah.
at that time.
I went in there with some of the ladies from Extension when it was first open to the
Oh, and
public.
now you need to come back. We have a kitchen and dining room and a real bathroom.
Oh, really?
Yes, we put an addition
Oh.
on the back.
Because we bought cookies or jelly there, they
Uh-huh.
had.
Yeah.
And I don't think we went upstairs. That wasn't ready yet.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all open now.
It
One of
is.
the rooms upstairs is devoted to military memorabilia, and a couple are just bedrooms like boarders would have.
Uh-huh.
And in the small room we have little children's things. But if your group would ever want to come for a meeting or something, we'd be glad to have you.
All right.
So.
I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, well, I think we
Well, I
did,
can't...
we did quite well. We have the history on Fred's Restaurant and your area out here. This is a very nice spot on beautiful Higgins Lake.
yeah, and like you say, we're trying to preserve it.
Yes, for sure.
And see, that's
yeah.
the thing. People just, well, what can you say?
Yeah.
I
Oh.
see what washes up, even after we rake everything, why, you'll see just odds and ends of plastic stuff, and the animals get into that,
Yeah.
and so on. And I think I only had swimmer's itch once here. Somebody
Oh.
complained, and I said, well, I don't know. I said, maybe you got the measles. But they went into town, and they said, well, it was swimmer's itch.
We've
See.
had it just down here at Alguire.
Oh,
So it's here.
well, the ducks are around, and they were here before we were.
Right.
You
That's
know?
right.
And then my niece, Janice, she heard a loon.
Oh.
And I said, I didn't think loon birds liked to be around people.
No, they usually
They're
don't.
loners by nature,
Mhm.
see. But there was, and I did hear it, but I love that sound,
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
So I just,
Wonderful.
and of course then some of them will say they don't like to see the geese, but oh boy, in the spring and the fall when I hear the honkers go by, I always run out to see them.
Mhm.
To me that's a privilege.
Sure.
One time I saw them, they were in formation, and the one left the front and the one from the back came up.
Oh.
And I mean, I had never seen that before, but because this guy needs a rest up front.
Uh-huh.
So if he gets to the back, he doesn't have quite the wind, taking its toll. But that was interesting.
Yeah, that
And
is very interesting.
another time we had a bunch of ice floes out as things were breaking up, and the birds were going north, which was early, and they spent the night out on the ice floe.
Okay. kidding.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was nice, you know, I enjoy that. And a lot of it disappears when people are up here in the summer.
Mhm.
And then it comes back when they all go away,
After Labor
you know.
Day,
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the golden days, September and
Oh,
October.
I know it, I know it.
I like them.
But I tell you what, I've had it with this January and February this year.
You're ready for spring, huh?
Well, I don't mind the cold, but it's just that the roads get so bad,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And our trail is kept plowed and everything, but that East Higgins Lake Drive can be a bear before you get out to the main road.
Mhm.
Okay, now, do you live right in town?
Yes, we live right across from St. Michael's Church.
Oh, all right.
In the Blanchard House.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, there was another house, was it the Holland House? That was that redone as an
Yeah.
antique thing?
My husband and I did that.
Oh, okay. But is that open for the public, or?
No, we sold it and a young couple lives there.
Oh,
They've had a
okay.
baby since they're there.
Uh-huh.
so.
Do you remember, let's see, maybe it was a ladies' garden club or something up here, but they had house tours?
Oh, the Historical Society did that in the year 2000.
Oh.
We had
Oh,
one.
no, this was prior to that even.
In the early 70s, it was extension groups.
Oh.
I was in extension group, and I believe our district was 5 groups because the Higgins Lake group was
Mhm.
part of it, and that whole district had I believe we had 3 in the early 70s because we always had some homes on the lake, some
Yeah,
in town, and we had some on the river, and I think we did it 3 times,
yeah.
and it was wonderful.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
It
I'd like
really
to see
was.
us do some more.
Yeah, I know many of the people, you know, in the cottages, why they went, and it was very, very nice.
Yeah, it was.
And the house that I was surprised at would be, is there a house between the Holland House and the one on the south end, that corner house?
There are 2 houses in there, but they were not in the home tour.
Well, one was on the corner. It'd be kitty corner from the florist.
Oh, yes, in the 70s.
Okay.
Yes,
And
that belonged to Yoder's at the time.
and so I was on that tour, and I went in. Of course, I love staircases,
Uh-huh.
and they had a lovely staircase
do.
in that home.
Mhm.
And I thought you would never know from the outside,
Yeah.
you know, how nice it was.
Yes, that belongs to Shirley and Doug Firstenau currently live in that house. But that's an 1880 house.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. There's 3 houses there that they all have the same roof line. And the Holland house was built in 1878. I'm sure they're all the same time frame.
And then the, boy, my mind goes blank. The ones who had the dime store,
Soap sack.
yeah, Dave Soapside. He and his wife bought a house down,
On 6th Street.
Yeah.
That's Price's house.
and they're still there, aren't they?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I know when they first got it, why Dave said, we'll stop in and we'll see, you know, you can see it. And I love the stained glass windows in their dining room.
Yes,
I love those. I said, well, I'll be able to take those out, Dave. And then they had a very interesting staircase. And on the pedestal, the main one, there was a light, which was very typical of that period.
Mhm.
And
It's still there.
yeah, and it was lovely,
Yeah.
lovely home. It had columns in it, you know, and this and that.
Yeah,
So,
it is
but
nice.
it was lovely. I could see where it had all sorts of potential.
Mhm. They're enjoying it very much.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, time goes on. I remember the dime stores, you know. That little one down where McConkey's, well,
Mhm.
used to be. Yeah, that was nice. That was nice. Sometimes I wonder if we have really improved ourselves or not.
It's a question, isn't it?
It really is, you know. You know, go, 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 and not get any place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I think we can be done.
Well,
So
I can't think of anything, you know, that would.
We kind of covered transportation because you said your family had cars when you
Oh,
came
yeah.
out here.
Yeah.
But when did you get electricity out here?
Golly, I don't know.
Don't remember.
Mm-mm. As I said, we had the oil lamps, and then we had a Delco system, which was kind of like, well, it would be kind of like electricity, only it
Sure.
would be maybe a generator thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a biggie.
Sure.
But actually, I don't know.
Do you remember who the people were who would cut the ice for you that went into the ice?
No. But they would have their horse and sleigh, and they'd be out there and cutting the ice.
Did you ever come in the winter then? In
My
those early
dad did.
years?
I didn't.
He would tell you about it probably.
The only time in the winter I was really here was my dad, let's see. Oh, I wasn't married, so I was married in 50, so it had to be prior to that. Joe Lewis had a fight that night, and my dad wanted to hear it, so we sat down there until the fight was over. Car was loaded, the trailer was
And you
loaded.
stayed at home until the fight was over?
Yeah. So we started out, so it would be a night drive, he didn't mind that. And we got up by 3 Mile Hill, you know where that is outside of Roscommon. And it was kind of rainy. We had a flat tire. And Muriel was pregnant with the daughter Janice. And my brother Bob was driving, and my dad was in the front seat, so Muriel and I were in the back. And then the hired man who was with us, I forget where Lawrence was, but anyway, we had the flat tire, got out to fix it. And along comes a car and hits the trailer, knocks the stuffing out of, the hired man was called Lawrence, and hit, because they were all outside of the car. And I had just put my head out the window to say, "Pa, how soon?" No more than got it in, and bang. Or my head would have, I think, come off. Anyway, my brother Bob was hit, and he was thrown across the front of the car where all the structure that holds the hood up, it just cut right through to the bone here. Unfortunately, he landed on the grass. It was in June. And my dad, he was caught between the trailer and the car, and he was just banged up. And so we got out, and this fella was drunk, and the first thing he did was take the bottle and throw it over into the bushes. And I walked over to see what it was. So I know they're all bad off, and Muriel, she, like I said, she was... So, and I walked over to my brother, and I thought he was dead. So anyway, here comes a great big truck, and here's shy me. Well, I got in the middle of the road, stopped the truck, and the man took me into Roscommon, and I got on the phone, and we got the ambulance, and this, that, and the other, and we got them all to the hospital.
In Grayling?
In Grayling. And my dad was there from June through October. The pelvis was broken, leg, this and that and the other. And so Muriel was all right. She didn't deliver until December, and my brother came out of it. But everyone was very nice. And my dad, when he was in the hospital in Grayling, he used to tell the nuns, it was the old wooden building then. And there are pictures in the lobby of the thing. And he said, "Sister, if I ever get a lot of money, I am going to build you a new hospital." Because he said, "This wooden frame scares me." You know, you walked up the stairway. It was a lovely old home. But he said, "This will go up just like a match." So anyway, that was a bad experience. Am I still on?
So did he ever donate money for the new
He
hospital?
did some, but
Did he?
nothing to...
Bless his heart.
But it just was. You know, when I see it now, I thought, yeah. He said, "I'm on the second floor," and his leg was up, and this and that, you know. But the
Probably worried a bit about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was a builder, and he knew, you know.
Sure.
So, but he enjoyed the sisters. They were very good to him.
Oh, that's
Very
great.
good, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I understand.
And so you all went to the hospital that night. Was the car
Oh, car was a mess, yeah.
able to
And-
be fixed?
I don't remember. I don't think so. They hauled it out here. We had the trailer with our stuff in it, you know.
Gee,
But it was bad.
yeah.
We had a lawsuit
Well, he was in the hospital a long time.
a long time, and we stayed up, Muriel and I, with my Aunt Nettie. That would be my brother, my dad's sister. We stayed up, well, almost to the end of October. And we were with, my dad had insurance with Omaha, Mutual of Omaha, and they canceled him out.
Oh,
And we had the lawsuit right up here. anyway, to being up here in the winter. This was, I think, in January, February when it happened, and so it was, you had to be off the road 3 feet or else you were not exonerated for anything. So I don't remember how far off, and my dad didn't, you know. Anyway, a state policeman testified. He said these people were well over 3 feet off the road.
You mean the trial was in January?
Yes, January, February. So
So you had
after
to
it was
come back.
after it was over, we came back here, and our attorney, he said, I've got to get back to Detroit because I have something going tomorrow. So my uncle was here, and the Spotses, who had the stable over there, and after they got rid of the stable down by Cottage Grove, they're up on the hill. It's lakeside riding,
Oh, okay.
so they own that. Anyway, they came up to see my dad and that. So we came back here, and we had the worst snowfall. We were snowed in. I mean snowed in, and we had two pair of snowshoes. So my uncle and I, we shooed out, and there was a little store up on the way to Grayling on Old 76. So they had a phone, so we were able to tell people that we were snowed in, because nobody knew where we were. Nobody knew. So, and my dad owned that piece of property that was the little triangle. Did you ever remember Dead Man's Curve? Well, you go around to Grayling where there was a triangle in there. So he eventually did sell that. Yeah,
To the state?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was to the state. Didn't use it. It was just practically a given, you know. So
Yeah.
property wasn't that vital
Yeah.
then.
That's true.
So,
Well, thank you very much.
well, if I can
We
think of it.
appreciate it.
If you want to know anything, why just give me a buzz.
Okay, we will do that. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Am I unplugged?